there's suffering. And I was weighing like 297 pounds. And I had to make a change in my life. You know, I was at an all-time low, and I wasn't going anywhere, and I was exactly what everybody said I was going to be, which was nothing. So I had to make a change. Pure scared kid. And the only way I could find myself was through putting myself through the worst thing possible. I'm gonna say the exact opposite of what the world, today's world, is saying.
In the end, like, what would your advice be to that 16-year-old kid who's staring in the mirror, does not like what he sees, but is still running from adversity?
Well, my biggest advice to him is that, first of all, he won't like what I say to him. Because I'm gonna say the exact opposite of what the world, today's world, is saying. So we read a bunch of books nowadays. As humans, we want to find out how to be someone else. What we don't do is we don't go inside. So literally turn yourself inside out. Read the book that says, like we're writing a book every day of our lives, but we never read that book. So what I would challenge this young man or young woman to do is you have to look inside of yourself and see what you really want. What are you passionate about? We use these words and these little phrases of only the strong survive and all this other crap. They're all just fucking words. I get so tired of hearing people just talking. Like right now, someone may think Goggins is just talking. You don't know me. So when I speak from passion. I speak from experience. I speak from suffering. I have to tell this young man or woman that the only way I believe, and this is my experience in life, the only way you're ever going to get to the other side of this journey is you have got to suffer to grow. To grow, you must suffer. And some people will get it, some people won't. So long story short, what I realized was no one was here to help me. And the feeling I had every morning, I started shaving my head when I was 16 years old. And the feeling I had every morning when I looked in the mirror was horrible. And I didn't want to feel like that anymore. And how I felt was a kid going nowhere, a kid that was scared. And most kids will accept that and look for help. But the best thing that happened to me, no one helped me. No one felt sorry for me. No one looked at me and said, like this day and age, they'll take you in and they'll tell everybody, stop picking on this person. Back then, they didn't care. We are all great. No matter if you think you're dumb, no matter if you think you're fat, no matter if you are fat, no matter if you've been bullied, or no matter if you just got back from Iraq or Afghanistan and you have no legs or your arms or whatever, man, we all have greatness. You gotta find the courage. You gotta find the courage to put your Bose headphones on and silence the noise out of this world and to find it. And to find it because it's out there, but it's gonna take hard work, courage, self-discipline. It's gonna take all the non-cognitive skills. But they have to see what their journey is to start their journey. Several people live to be 100 years old and they have great lives and they have great kids. Their kids go to college and all sort of stuff. But somewhere in their life, there was a point where they had a decision to make. They can go left or right on this path. Left was the easy route. Right was the hard route. A lot of people take the easy route. And they had a good life that way, but the better life was going to the right side. A human being is not so human anymore. We have the ability to go in such a space if you're willing to suffer, and I mean suffer. Your brain and your body, once connected together, can do anything. Motivation comes and goes. When you're driven, whatever's in front of you will get destroyed. And you may have 20 years of pain and suffering to get past it, but a lot of us die never truly starting our journey. And I would tell this young person, you gotta start your journey. It may suck, but it will come out the other side where you're coasting. Stop listening to people who are calling you fat, gay, transsexual, nigger. Everything that is makes no sense. All these insecure people putting their insecurities on you, you gotta flush it out. You gotta just be whoever the hell God or whatever the hell you believe in. If you believe in nothing but yourself, I don't care what it is. You gotta take everything and throw it away. You have to believe in one thing, and that is yourself. My biggest advice to give everybody in the world is, like I say, we live in an external world. Everything is you gotta see it, touch it, it's external. If you can, for the rest of your life, live inside of yourself. And people may listen to this and say, this guy is sadistic, he's crazy, No, if you know how I came up, you realize I was just a scared kid that found drive and passion to be something much better than what he thought he was. That's all it is. Even the hardest men, in times of suffering, what we do is we forget how hard we really are. Because that's what suffering is. Suffering is a test, that's all it is. Suffering is the true test of life. Self-talk and visualization are two keys to my success. The very best is that I leave everything inside of me out there. So attacking is not like, oh, I want to win this or win that or be the best. The best is I'm running against myself in everything I do, and that's what I attack. I attack myself. I'm always questioning myself. So the things that we run from the truth. We're running from the truth, man. So the only way I became successful was going towards the truth. As painful and as brutal as it is, it changed me. It allowed me to become, in my own right, who I am today. When you look in the mirror, that's the one person you can't lie to. So every morning I would shave my head thinking, God, I would reflect back on some of the lies I may have told somebody or some of the ways I acted that I didn't feel comfortable doing. And I did it to impress other normal people. The key word there is normal, everyday people. I was trying to make other people like me. How pathetic is that? Your skin, become more of a human being. Don't be afraid of the reflection in the mirror, because that's all you can be afraid of. Once you overcome the reflection in the mirror, you've done it. But if you can get through to doing things that you hate to do, on the other side is greatness. That's what people understand. By me running, I am callous in my mind. I'm not training for a race. I'm training for life. I'm training for the time when I get that 2 o'clock in the morning call that my mom is dead or something happens tragic in life. I don't fall apart. I'm training my mind and my body and my spirit so it's all one, so I can handle what life is going to throw at me. Because the life I've lived, it throws a whole bunch at you. And if you're not physically and mentally prepared for that, you're just going to crumble, and you're good for nobody. But the mentality of a warrior is very different than normal mentality. You must be that person on that door, get ready to open it, thinking to yourself, if I die, so be it. The only way you can go in that door is knowing there's a great chance you're gonna die. Open the motherfucking, go in hard. Because they're gonna remember you by slowly opening it and peeking in. So if you're gonna open it, and you made the mind to open it, don't crack it open. Open the fucking door, go in. That's with life. If you're choosing to do something, attack it. Because they're gonna remember you as not attacking it. So I want to be remembered. You can hate me, but one thing you can't say about me, I didn't attack it. So that's the mentality you have. If you're gonna do something, you might as well attack it. Hopefully, I can help people that believe that they're much less than what they truly are. Help them find greatness in themselves. And greatness isn't running 200 miles at a time or doing 4,000 pull-ups or being a SEAL. Greatness is whatever the hell you dreamed of in your own mind. You gotta first see it. You gotta first create this vision in your mind. And then that's when I come into play. Once you create this vision in your mind, it's how am I gonna get there now? And that's when I come into play. But first you gotta create your own vision. And then it's not external. It's the vision created is inside of you. So until you create that, I'm nobody to you.
I think so many people are keyboard activists, right? Everybody's good at sending a tweet about how the world should be and nobody's doing anything about it. And that is just very much human nature.
We've gotten soft as a culture.
Yes. You know, I mean, of course we've gotten soft as a culture in the US because the US has had an incredible 200-year run, right? Like this is just what happens. You know, so as a culture, you know, I can't speak for, you know, people that live in the Amazon River, and I can't speak for, you know, people that still live in Belarus, but the American culture is soft, and that's a great thing. That means there's been enormous amounts of prosperity, but let's not be naive. I mean, people literally complain when somebody gives them the wrong amount of like extra cream in a Starbucks $6 coffee. My lack of interest in complaining is so high, and when I watch what people complain about, it breaks my heart because they completely lack perspective. And I genuinely believe my happiness and optimism comes from my perspective. Even in political unrest times like right now, a lot of people are very bent out of shape, but the reality is that it's just never been better to be a human being. That's just the truth, that's just data, that's reality. And yeah, I mean, it's just a very fun time to be alive. And I think the way people look at the world right now, because it's such an incredible time, is actually the quickest tell to who they are. If you think it sucks or it's bad, you have losing pessimistic DNA. And if you think it's awesome and phenomenal, you have optimistic winning DNA. And I believe that to be true. And so that's where we're at. We're beating ourselves up. Like everybody sucks at something. Right? Like we all have shortcomings and we all have strengths. And for me, it's like, why don't we just audit that? Like, why don't we just look at it that way and be like, all right, well, I'm good at this, but I'm not good at that. Like, and then I only focus what I'm good at, right? Like, I don't dwell that I can't fix shit around the house. I call somebody to fix it. Like, I'm not like, I'm not a man. I don't give a fuck. Like, you know, I don't get it. Like we all, like, I also think it's awesome that I'm so emotionally stable and I'm the emotional backbone of everybody. Is that what a dude's supposed to do? Like these cliches, these stereotypes, they're so silly. I'm fully in love with myself, but I'm also fully in love with everybody else too, right? It's not like it goes both ways. Like I tell people to buy into me, that work for me, it's because I buy into them first. Like, I don't need anybody to gain trust with me. It's there. Like, I believe that the human race is so grossly underrated. We are good. Of course we have some bad. There's fucking 7 billion of us. But like, when you look at our net score, it's bonkers shit. Like, do you know how much damage we could be doing to each other on an hourly basis? And we don't? Like, we're still here. Like, we won. We're the alpha being, and we've figured out how to stay together. This is insane when you think about it. And yet everybody wants to dwell on like somebody said something mean. If you want to be an anomaly, you have to act like one. Like people want all these special things to happen, but then they're acting like everybody else. And that gets into the Saturdays on in your 20s, like, or just like taking risks or things of that nature. Like, if there's anything they take away, it's like, look, like you're gonna only be so pretty, you're only gonna be so smart, like there's things that are gonna be natural and then there's things that you can actually control. I do believe, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, I don't, but I do believe that work ethic is a taught behavior. It's something you do have more control over. And you know what really sealed the deal for me? Getting healthier. I was 38 years old and it didn't come natural to me. Like it didn't come natural to me at all. I hate the gym. I hate it now. I hate it, I don't like it, I don't want to do it. But I knew it was important. And somewhere around midway through being 38 years old, I got serious, I figured out my system, I made the financial commitment, and I've won, right? And I'll never lose again because the system was I needed to be accountable to another human being. So it was about Mike and now Jordan and whoever else is my trainer. I'm doing it almost weirdly more to not let them down. I feel like there's a shift that can make people work harder. The big one that I push is you're gonna die. Like if you're like to me, life is broken down into complaining and not. So if you're not complaining, well then I have no advice for you. I'm pumped. Like you did it. Like I have friends who make $42,000 a year, work 9 to 4, kind of, with an hour and a half lunch and 45 minutes of YouTube and 10 minutes of bullshitting and an hour of complete wasted time in a meeting. So they're kind of working like 6, hours a week, right? But they're pumped. And they text me, these are high school friends, and they'll text me like how happy they are to be the coach of their kids' baseball team. And like that's amazing. Like that seems very obvious to me. That's right. You know what's super weird? I'm actually weirdly envious. It sounds cool, like in theory, right? Grass is always greener, right? Like far less pressure, like all that time with my kids, oof, that would be cool. Like there's just like all these things that I can justify. So to me, but I have friends who have $100 million in the bank because of Facebook's IPO, who complain, who are still hungry, who want to do even more, who will complain to me because they know I work a lot about no work-life balance and they don't get to spend enough time with their family. And I'm like, you have $100 million. Like you could stay home. Like you're in control. Like you don't complain about it. You've made that choice. Don't bullshit me. Like you want to spend more time with your family? Spend more time with your family. I'm trying to be very careful about what I'm saying versus what I'm doing, because that's how you get exposed. And I don't mean like people calling you out and being like, you suck. I mean to yourself. I don't want to be exposed by myself. It's looking yourself in the mirror and saying like, am I doing this right? So to me, there's so many people that are talking shit about how big of an entrepreneur they're gonna be and how much they're gonna achieve, and they don't work on weekends. I worked every Saturday of my 20s. And I talk to 20-year-old entrepreneurs every single day. Lately, I've been saying to them, this Saturday, you're gonna have more time off than I've had in my entire 20s on a Saturday. So before you tell me how you're gonna be bigger than me, start thinking about what you're actually doing. I'm careful to not give advice that I know is uniquely something that I was gifted with. How do I tell you that, oh, here's how it actually works, and it almost started happening, it didn't happen. I actually get goosebumps, real heavy goosebumps when I hear something that I know feels right. What's the advice there? Hey, Johnny, start getting goosebumps. There's certain things that I can't talk about because I know they're not practical. They're intuitive to me. I plan to instill kindness into my kids. I plan on instilling perspective into my kids. I plan in instilling just being a good human being. I plan on making sure they don't use their parents' wealth and micro fame and leverage to impose on any other person. I'm petrified of that. If my kids try to punk their friends on my shit, I'm gonna beat the fuck out of them. Like, that's just loser DNA. You didn't do that. Right? Like, so like, I'm not obsessed with tactics. I'm obsessed with religion. So I have a lot of wealthy friends at this point who think it's smart for them to sit first class, but the kids in coach. It's a tactic. They send their kids to Africa to build a school for a week. It's a tactic. It's like my friends that love the environment. The number 2 sector in the world that is hurting the environment is the fashion industry. When you run the math of what's doing bad to the earth, it's the number 2 industry behind gas. I don't even want to say it because I'm not sure if it's gas and oil. The number 2 industry, this I know for a fact, is the fashion industry. So all my fancy friends who love the environment, are they willing to give up their fucking Louis bags? Let's see, right? So like, I think people talk shit. So you let them sit coach and you went first class, but you went to, you know, Hawaii and ate at all the best like, you can't pick and choose. To me, it's binary. So I don't want to be a hypocrite. So my big thing is like, look, you need to be kind. Like, mean is just non-negotiable in our family, right? And then you just need to not be full of shit. If you want to look at daddy's mountain and you want to say what I did to my dad's, and that was a big mountain for an immigrant, like, wow, dad did it, right? If you want to say, I'm going to climb that and I'm going to climb bigger, awesome. Like, I'm pumped. I'm weirdly not cheering for you because I'm just a weirdly competitive dude. This is actually something I'm not proud of. I'm comfortable saying this and I believe this is a flaw, but I don't want my kids to beat me. I don't. Like, I hate saying it. I know this is where I get in trouble. People will take one little clip from one video interview and they're like, you're bad. It's just my truth. I don't want to bullshit you guys. Like, I'm that competitive. I just want them to be all in on them, right? Like, I don't need them to be an entrepreneur. I don't need them to make me proud. They don't need to go to Harvard. They don't need to do shit. They need to be themselves, all in, and they need to be kind, and I'm good. Like, everybody thinks their stuff is so good. Like, every day, Gary, my Instagram's so on fire, it's so awesome. Why is nobody, like, why am I not gaining followers? Because it's not awesome. We all think our stuff is the best, and like, I get that. But yeah, that would be my advice, only because that also is liberating. To me, everything's about breathing, right? Like, to me, everything is about like, take full ownership for everything, and then everything gets easy, because then you're in control. And then learn how to love to lose. I think that's how entrepreneurship, that's how life is. We all have losses. And so I like losses. I love adversity. I like the climb. I like the chip on my shoulder. I like when people are like, oh, I knew it, he's not that good. That is like I'm even weirdly scared as I continue to ascend and I'm getting popular and what do you say, the marketing leading, like, as people start putting these words in front of my name, I'm like, am I gonna sabotage myself to like recorrect this? Like, I like adversity. So yeah, all on me. You know, I enjoy losses. Now all of a sudden, like, what? You become completely invincible. I feel invincible. I really genuinely, outside of the health of myself and 20 people, feel 100% invincible as a person. I know what my intent is. I want to do good at nobody else's expense. I'm far from perfect. We all are. And so just easy. It feels very light to live life. I'm just in a good mood. Home. And I think modern day parents and most parents do not do that. I think they focus on dumb shit like grades because they are insecure and they want to put the bumper sticker that their kid went to, you know, Stanford. Like, it's real fucked up when you really think about what's actually happening. So much of it is misery loves company, or people reflecting of what's inside of them.
Is the impact that you want to have on the world?
Same thing that attracts so many of millions of people to people that are selling bullshit, those same people are attracted to me. And what I want to do is suffocate out all those other people and become the alpha of that entire world of people that are hoping and are desperate to look at me, and what I want to do is inspire two 14-year-old girls in Kansas City right now to build a $1 billion company on having a bunch of employees hugging each other in the halls. I think that Steve Jobs came along, became an icon, but the sad part of that narrative was he did not treat his employees well. He became an icon, and the narrative became he got the most out of people by being a jerk, and that became romanticized. And a lot of people in Silicon Valley today run companies where they're mean because they think that's the right thing to do because they put Steve Jobs on a pedestal. I want my pedestal moment. I want to become that big, and what I want to come from that is that kids that aren't even born today think that they can build a $5 billion company and be a great guy or a great gal. I want to build the biggest building in town ever by just building the biggest building in town, while I think most people try to tear down everybody else's building. So I think positivity and good is practical advice to building an empire, and I want to be the poster child of the person that built the biggest, baddest empire and did it by being a good dude along the way. And not everybody's gonna be happy about everything I did, but if it's 97% of people talking good behind your back, that's a real legacy. And I wanna do it in a pop culture way. I'm gonna do it anyway. People have done that before. Just so you know, there's plenty of people. Warren Buffett's a really good dude. Like, there's plenty of people that have done that. There's a difference. I wanna do it, and I wanna be a rock star, right? Like, and that's where you influence people. Like, you know, like, I wanna do it, but I also wanna be the most popular. And so then that person's like, oh, I wanna be him, so I guess I'll be nice. Like, I wanna literally take people who have DNA that's kind of nice and make them more nice because they think that's how I became big. So I basically wanna trick the business world into becoming kinder.
Your brain is like a supercomputer. I stop breathing 200 times a night. We have right now to be able to, and that's why adopt new habits. People like Mark Zuckerberg or Reddy, your heart would explode in your chest. Motive matters, right? And what drives us. I always tell people that there's this success formula. I subscribe to it. I call it H cubed, that it goes from your head to your heart to your hands. Especially in the personal development space or what they teach you about goal setting. You could affirm things in your head or think things in your head or visualize things in your head. But if you're not acting with your hands, there's something that's missing, right? There's an incongruency there. And what I tell people is, like, you know, check in with the second H, which is your heart, which is the symbol of like emotion, the energy of motion. And so I feel like that's the fuel that fuels the car that gets you to take action for something. And I do believe what got me through it is figuring out what my why was. I think some of the most successful people live at the edge of their limits, you know, and they play there also as well. And so whenever I feel in my nervous system, I feel like I can't do it, then I feel like I really must do it, because I feel like how we do anything is how we do everything. Your brain is like a supercomputer, and your self-talk is a program that will run. So if you tell yourself you're not good at remembering names, you will not remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your supercomputer not to. Your self-talk is important, and it is the program that will run. And I always tell people to keep it positive, keep it empowering, because your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk, right? And you have to be careful what you say to yourself because it's this unconscious command. I just did a podcast on habits, right? How to be able to adopt new habits and also delete and get rid of, you know, break bad habits, right? And so a lot of people always want to usually make a change on behavior. They want to get themselves to work out. They want to get themselves to meditate. They want to get themselves to read more each day. They want to get themselves to X, right? Or they want to stop some behavior. They want to stop smoking. They want to stop eating this food. They want to stop, I always tell people, stop checking your phone the first hour of the day. That's like sacred time for me, you know, because I think that if you want to be an elite mental performer or, you know, real life superhero, you don't want to start off by checking the phone. We talked about this in the past, because you're training yourself to be reactive, right? You're getting your dopamine, you're frying your nervous system with all these likes, shares, comments, and everything else like that. that
You've said, if I'm not mistaken, you sell your sovereignty.
We do.
If you start by checking your phone. I love that so much.
Because you're reacting and firefighting to everyone's everything that everyone wants. So you're not really you're not living, you've heard this many times, right? If you want to, you win the first hour of the day to win the rest, you win the day, right? And so anything you want to stop, so like say you want to stop checking your phone, right, in the morning, then there's certain, that's a behavior, right? But there's so many other elements to be able to change because most behaviors don't stick, right? And so what I'm thinking about when I want to transform or transcend or make a real positive change, I'm looking at all the other areas of ourself. So I'm looking at, for example, our environment. Are people setting up their environment to win? So change doesn't just happen at this level of behavior, but you have to change the environment. So for example, if you want to stop eating a certain food, it helps to be able to have not have that food in your home, right? So you change the environment. If you want to read more, it helps to help set up your environment where you have the books readily available, where you're going to read it because they perform, how I approach habit change is this area of motivation and this trigger, right? You want to trigger it to help remind you to do the behavior, right? So are you setting up the environment in a way that triggers the behavior that you want? Another level of change that we need to address. Let's say someone's watching this and they have something they want to change, and it's not sticking. Then maybe it's the environment. Maybe you could check about your habits, but maybe it's your beliefs and your values. Some people will not get themselves to read every day because they don't value reading every single day, right? Some people won't. Let's say the behavior they want to change is, we did a podcast on how to remember names. I could teach them step by step on how to remember the name of most people that they meet, yet they won't do it because they don't value it, or because that's not important to them, or they don't believe that they can, right? Just like we talked about earlier, saying your brain is like a supercomputer, and your self-talk is a programmer runs. If you tell yourself you're not good at remembering names, you will not remember the name of the next person you meet because you program your supercomputer not to. They don't have a belief that enables that. So when I say all behavior is belief-driven, if you want to do this behavior, whatever it is, journal, whatever it is, then you need a belief that allows that to happen. My favorite way of changing a belief is getting them to do something they never thought they could do, because it opens up another possibility. For example, in 1954, Roger Bannister, he broke the 4-minute mile, right? And so, which is amazing, right? Throughout human history, nobody could run a mile in less than 4 minutes. Now, if you look into it, how he was able to do it is he would visualize himself crossing the finish line, looking at the clock, and it says 3:59. Because he knew that success is an inside-out process. That first it had to happen in here, in order for happening out there, right? Dr. Wayne Dyer has this famous phrase where it's not, oh, I'll believe it when I see it. It's like, I'll see it when I believe it, right? Because it's the opposite, right? And so I always like modeling the outliers where most people kind of just dismiss them. I was like, well, what's going on there that allows this person to get this kind of result, right? And so with Roger Bannister, he saw it in here, be able to produce it outside, just like any innovator or inventor or writer or any creator, right? But what was interesting is after that, what happened? Nobody could do it from the beginning of humanity. All of a sudden, one person does it. What happens after that? It was a change of belief, right? Because the belief back then was, if you ran a mile in less than 4 minutes, not only would you die, it was your heart would explode in your chest. And think about that would, and I'm a runner, right? That would keep me not just running, that wouldn't keep me from running a 4 minutes, that would keep me from running, period, right? And so my thing is that was a change of a reference. That shook up a belief. So my goal with people when it comes to learning is get themselves to do something they never thought they could do, and then it opens up another possibility. It literally opens up their nervous system for what else could be possible. Now, I would also say that it all plays together where it's not easy necessarily just to change a belief overnight. It's not about resources, right? Because we know a lot of people who didn't have any resources that were able to impact the world. It's about our internal resources. And what I'm saying is optimizing our environment, optimizing our behaviors, our capabilities, our beliefs and our values, and our identity, right? At the highest level, our identity, because you can't just change your belief or your values or your behavior even if you don't believe you're that kind of person. If we don't believe that we're a public speaker or we're a great parent or we're a great learner or genius, then we'll never be able to reach our full potential, because that will always be the ceiling that we bump up against. think that genius leaves clues, and I believe that it can be replicated if you're willing to put in the work and the learning and the discipline to be able to do that. I teach people how to read one book a week. I really think leaders are readers, that in order to stay competitive in today's day and age, if somebody has decades of experience and they put it into a book and you can sit down and read that in a few days, download decades into days, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir for everyone who's watching, but that's a superpower, right? That's a huge advantage. I think geniuses set themselves up. So for example, they have their laptop, but they only use their laptop for work, and it's anchored, that's part of their environment, it's anchored to get them into flow states to be able to write or be productive. They don't use their laptop to watch binge on Netflix, right? They have an iPad that they use when they do that because that's the state that they want to anchor for that, and they don't use that iPad to do work. You know, setting up your environment like your bedroom. Like we just did a whole episode on sleep hacks and how to optimize your sleep, because that's a big, personal challenge for me for many years, because I had suffered from sleep apnea. It was a breathing disorder. I stopped breathing 200 times a night for at least 10 seconds, which is the equivalent of somebody coming in and just choking and suffocating you 200 times a night. And so I would actually, the reason why I'm so adamant about productivity and learning hacks is because for the longest time, for literally 5 years straight, and you know this, I've slept about 90 minutes to 2 hours a night total. And you know how you feel when you get like one bad night's of sleep, and how like where your focus is, your energy level, and how I get these horrible migraines, and it's forced me to double down in my practices. In terms of, like, I have a limited amount of time. I have to focus on the things that really matter, resources and stuff. But anyway, going back to this, like, my bedroom is sacred space, right? I don't do work in there. I keep it because that's my trigger to be able to rest, go into parasympathetic space. I set up my environment, so I have my blackout curtains, I have my grounding pad, so it's to optimize my restful sleep that I do get. So environment, so genius leaves clues. They set up genius environments for themselves. And then the behaviors, most people would know because they're intuitive. These people are investing in themselves, they're investing in self-care. I always tell people that self-love and self-care is not selfish. A lot of people, they're there for their friends and their family and their clients and everybody else, but they're not refilling their cup. So I think that we have to be, grow givers, meaning we grow so we have more to give to other people, so we have more impact with other individuals. So the behaviors are reading each day and putting together your to-do list, and I think having your not to-do list is so important. Being sleep deprived for so many years, I think a lot of people, I'm super sensitized to it, but I think one of the success rituals people should have is just going through and keeping a consistent not to-do list. And I think the most successful genius level individuals, one of the clues that they leave is their not to-do list is bigger than their to-do list, right? They don't check their phone in the morning, they don't take in, everything is hell yes or it's hell no, right? That's their filter system. They don't, they say no to good so they can say yes to great, right? I'm talking about an incredible, artist. I'm talking about an athlete. I'm talking about an advocate, in some area. Is they're clear about their identity, about who they are and who they are to the world. And so, but I know what they do commit is they do the work and they're committed to lifelong learning. Knowledge is power, then learning is your superpower. And I think it's a superpower that we all have. It's just we're not taught. My thing when it comes to success rituals and high performance and making an impact is that we all have that sovereignty, we all have that power. And whenever we put it out there and give it out to somebody else, like we're a thermometer, right? The metaphor I always talk about, it's like we're either thermometers or we're thermostats. And a thermometer, you think about the functionality of it, it just reflects what the environment is giving it, right? It just reflects the temperature and stuff. But a thermostat is different. It sets a standard, it sets a goal, it sets a vision, and the environment changes along with it. And I feel like our happiness, our joy, our level of fulfillment, our success is all dependent on where we put the locus of control. We have more power than we realize in these cases, and it's hard because we have to fight media, we have to fight marketing that's always telling us about all the things that are going on in the world. But we live in an abundant universe, right? I mean, we talk about the matrix, which pill people are gonna take. And that determines everything. And every single morning, you determine what color pill you're gonna take. And I would say what keeps me going is I have a belief that everything can get better. Like that's my self-talk. When it comes down to what my primary belief is I feel that things can get better, because otherwise if I didn't, then I would just give up, right? And I have too many examples of friends and family and just people I don't know, which are just friends of my mind, that have superseded much more difficult situations than I have. The other thing it's helped me to do is really focus on the rituals and the routines, the habits, the abilities that really matter, you know, the 80-20 rule, because when I have a certain amount of energy, I can only do a certain amount of things, and I need to get more back, and I'm still doing the job, quote unquote, of most, 3 or 4 people, going on stage and traveling to like the kind of things that we do, but it forces me to focus on the things that's going to give maximum return. And and I think we do teach the things that we need to learn the most. I think the best teachers are the best students. I'm never looking for perfection because I don't think that the standard exists. I'm just looking to make incremental progress. When I wake up in the morning, I have my daily routine, and it's so fine-tuned because I think a lot of people suffer from decision-making fatigue, right? And this is very strong research saying that you can only make a certain amount of good decisions a day, and after that is spent, you can't anymore. And that's really been fine-tuned in the medical field with surgeons and such, in terms of seeing their, where they're making their errors and stuff with early on in the day or later in their days and stuff like that. But we all, as entrepreneurs or as employees and executives or as parents, we all can make a certain amount of decisions, and that's why people like Mark Zuckerberg or Tony Hsieh, they wear the same t-shirts and sweatshirts all the time because they don't want to spend, use up one of their decisions thinking, oh, what am I going to wear today, right? And so my goal is to streamline my life, put the routines, the first hour of the day and the last hour of the day, I really micromanage to the point where it's habitual. I don't even have to think about it. And then, because those are the times of the day where I could really have the most impact, because later on in the middle of the day, team members need this, there's firefighting this, client needs that. But the first hour, the last hour, I really want to control. So all this really helped develop grit and resilience, in my body, so I could have the ability to persevere. And also, I stand guard to my brain all the time, what goes in. I don't watch like a lot of the negative news and all the market. I really focus, like, I watch and I listen to your show and maybe a handful of little things I read each day because I need to keep it positive. I want hope and I'm looking for help. I'm looking for inspiration and also instruction.
I have yet to give a speech or have a meeting where somebody doesn't ask me the millennial question.
What's the millennial question?
Apparently millennials as a generation, which is a group of people who were born approximately 1984 and after, are tough to manage. And they're accused of being entitled and narcissistic, and self-interested, unfocused, lazy. But entitled is the big one. And because they confound leadership so much, what's happening is leaders are asking the millennials, what do you want? And millennials are saying, we want to work in a place with purpose, love that. We want to make an impact, whatever that means. We want free food and beanbags. Somebody articulates some sort of purpose, there's lots of free food and there's beanbags, and yet for some reason, they're still not happy. And that's because they're missing, there's a missing piece. What I've learned is that I can break it down into 4 pieces, right? There are four things, 4 characteristics. One is parenting, the other one is technology, the third is impatience, and the fourth is environment. The generation that we call the millennials, too many of them grew up subject to, not my words, failed parenting strategies, where, for example, they were told that they were special all the time. They were told that they could have anything they want in life, just because they want it, right? They were told, some of them got into honors classes, not because they deserved it, but because their parents complained. And some of them got A's, not because they earned them, but because the teachers didn't want to deal with the parents. Some kids got participation medals. You got a medal for coming in last, right? Which the science we know is pretty clear, which is it devalues the medal and the reward for those who actually work hard. And it actually makes the person who comes in last feel embarrassed because they know they didn't deserve it. So it actually makes them feel worse, right? So you take this group of people and they graduate school and they get a job and they're thrust into the real world, and in an instant they find out they're not special, their moms can't get them a promotion, that you get nothing for coming in last, and by the way, you can't just have it because you want it, right? And in an instant, their entire self-image is shattered. And so you have an entire generation that's growing up with lower self-esteem than previous generations. The other problem, to compound it, is we're growing up in a Facebook, Instagram world. In other words, we're good at putting filters on things. We're good at showing people that life is amazing even though I'm depressed, right? And so everybody sounds tough, and everybody sounds like they got it all figured out. And the reality is there's very little toughness, and most people don't have it figured out. And so when the more senior people say, well, what should we do? They sound like, this is what you gotta do. And they have no clue. So you have an entire generation growing up with lower self-esteem than previous generations, right? Through no fault of their own, right? They were dealt a bad hand, right? Now let's add in technology. We know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good, right? So we've all had it where you're feeling a little bit down or feeling a bit lonely. It's why we count the likes. It's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is growing slower, did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore, right? The trauma for young kids to be unfriended, right? Because we know when you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it. It's why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive. Right? We have age restrictions on smoking, gambling, and alcohol, and we have no age restrictions on social media and cell phones, which is the equivalent of opening up the liquor cabinet and saying to our teenagers, hey, by the way, this adolescence thing, if it gets you down. And you have an entire generation that has access to an addictive, numbing chemical called dopamine through social media and cell phones as they're going through the high stress of adolescence. Why is this important? Almost every alcoholic discovered alcohol when they were teenagers. When we're very, very young, the only approval we need is the approval of our parents. And as we go through adolescence, we make this transition where we now need the approval of our peers. Very frustrating for our parents, very important for us. It allows us to acculturate outside of our immediate families into the broader tribe, right? It's a highly, highly stressful and anxious period of our lives, and we're supposed to learn to rely on our friends. Some people, quite by accident, discover alcohol and numbing effects of dopamine to help them cope with the stresses and anxieties of adolescence. Unfortunately, that becomes hardwired in their brains, and for the rest of their lives, when they suffer significant stress, they will not turn to a person, they will turn to the bottle. Social stress, financial stress, career stress, that's pretty much the primary reasons why an alcoholic drinks, right? What's happening is because we're allowing unfettered access to these dopamine-producing devices and media, basically it's becoming hardwired, and what we're seeing is as they grow older, too many kids don't know how to form deep, meaningful relationships. Their words, not mine. They will admit that many of their friendships are superficial. They will admit that their friends, that they don't count on their friends, they don't rely on their friends, they have fun with their friends, but they also know that their friends will cancel on them if something better comes along. Deep, meaningful relationships are not there because they never practice the skill set, and worse, they don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress. So when significant stress starts to show up in their lives, they're not turning to a person, they're turning to a device, they're turning to social media, they're turning to these things which offer temporary relief. We know, the science is clear, we know that people who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression than people who spend less time on Facebook, right? These things balanced. Alcohol is not bad, too much alcohol is bad. Gambling is fun, too much gambling is dangerous, right? There's nothing wrong with social media and cell phones. It's the imbalance, right? If you're sitting at dinner with your friends and you're texting somebody who's not there, that's a problem. That's an addiction. If you're sitting in a meeting with people you're supposed to be listening to and speaking, and you put your phone on the table, face up or face down, I don't care, that sends a subconscious message to the room that you're just not that important to me right now, right? That's what happens. And the fact that you cannot put it away is because you are addicted, right? If you wake up and you check your phone before you say good morning to your girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse, you have an addiction. And like all addiction, in time, it'll destroy relationships, it'll cost time, and it'll cost money, and it'll make your life worse, right? So you have a generation growing up with lower self-esteem that doesn't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress, right? Now you add in the sense of impatience, right? They've grown up in a world of instant gratification. You want to buy something, you go on Amazon, it arrives the next day. You want to watch a movie? Log on and watch a movie. You don't check movie times. You want to watch a TV show? Binge. You don't even have to wait week to week to week, right? I know people who skip seasons just so they can binge at the end of the season, right? Instant gratification. You want to go on a date? You don't even have to learn how to be like, hey. You don't even have to learn and practice that skill. You don't have to be the uncomfortable one who says yes when you mean no and says no when you mean no, but yes when you don't have to swipe right. Bang, I'm a stud. Right? You don't have to learn the social coping mechanisms, right? Everything you want, you can have instantaneously. Everything you want, instant gratification, except job satisfaction and strength of relationships. There ain't no app for that. They are slow, meandering, uncomfortable, messy processes. And so I keep meeting these wonderful, fantastic, idealistic, hardworking, smart kids. They've just graduated school. They're in their entry-level job. And I sit down with them and I go, how's it going? They go, I think I'm gonna quit. I'm like, why? They're like, I'm not making an impact. I'm like, you've been here 8 months. It's as if they're standing at the foot of a mountain and they have this abstract concept called impact that they want to have in the world, which is the summit. What they don't see is the mountain. I don't care if you go up the mountain quickly or slowly, but there's still a mountain. And so what this young generation needs to learn is patience. That some things that really, really matter, like love, or job fulfillment, joy, love of life, self-confidence, a skill set, any of these things, all of these things take time. Sometimes you can expedite pieces of it, but the overall journey is arduous and long and difficult. And if you don't ask for help and learn that skill set, you will fall off the mountain, or you will, the worst case scenario, and we're already seeing it, the worst case scenario is we're seeing an increase in suicide rates, we're seeing an increase in this generation, we're seeing an increase in accidental deaths due to drug overdoses, we're seeing more and more kids drop out of school or take leaves of absence due to depression. Unheard of. These are all, this is really bad. The best case scenario, those are all bad cases, right? The best case scenario is you'll have an entire population growing up and going through life and just never really finding joy. They'll never really find deep fulfillment in work or in life. They'll just waft through life and it'll be just, it's fine. How's your job? It's fine, the same as yesterday. How's your relationship? It's fine. Like that's the best case scenario, which leads me to the fourth point, which is environment, which is we're taking this amazing group of young, fantastic kids who are just dealt a bad hand. It's no fault of their own. And we put them in corporate environments that care more about the numbers than they do about the kids. They care more about the short-term gains than the long-term life of this young human being. We care more about the year than the lifetime, right? And so we are putting them in corporate environments that aren't helping them build their confidence, that aren't helping them learn the skills of cooperation, that aren't helping them overcome the challenges of a digital world and finding more balance, that isn't helping them overcome the need to have instant gratification and teach them the joys and impact and the fulfillment you get from working hard on something for a long time that cannot be done in a month or even in a year. And so we're thrusting to them in corporate environments, and the worst part about it is they think it's them. They blame themselves. They think it's them who can't deal. And so it makes it all worse. It's not. I'm here to tell them it's not them. It's the corporations, it's the corporate environments, it's the total lack of good leadership in our world today that is making them feel the way they do. They were dealt a bad hand, and I hate to say it, but it's the company's responsibility. Sucks to be you, like we have no choice, right? This is what we got, and I wish that society and their parents did a better job. They didn't. So we're getting them in our companies, and we now have to pick up the slack. We have to work extra hard to figure out the ways that we build their confidence. We have to work extra hard to find ways to teach them the social skills that they're missing out on. There should be no cell phones in conference rooms. None. Zero. And I don't mean the kind of like sitting outside waiting to text. I mean like when you're sitting and waiting for a meeting to start, this is what we all do. We all sit here and wait for the meeting to start. Meeting starting? Okay. And we start the meeting. No, that's not how relationships are formed. Remember we talked about it's the little things? Relationships are formed this way. We're waiting for a meeting to start and we go, how's your dad? I heard he was in the hospital. Oh, he's really good. Thanks for asking. He's actually at home now. Oh, I'm really glad. It was really amazing. I know, it was really scary for a while. That's how you form relationships. Hey, did you ever get that report done? Oh my God, no, I didn't. I'll help you out. Can I help you out with that? Really? That's how trust forms. Trust doesn't form at an event in a day. Even bad times don't form trust immediately. It's the slow, steady consistency. And we have to create mechanisms where we allow for those little innocuous interactions to happen.
What is your belief about belief? Is it important? Is it a starting point?
It is the only thing that matters. It is literally the only thing that matters. Because your experience, how you build something, what you learn, whatever it is, anything that you achieve, it is literally only based off of how much you believe it's going to happen. Goals and all this stuff, all it is breaking it down into micro actions for you to understand it and believe it, right? Because at the end of the day, it's only people that lose belief that quit. Move at such a pace that even hearing so much of that stuff, I just forget. I forget about the depth of a lot of the things that I've done throughout the time, because I almost only have memory in like 3-year chunks at a time from doing so much different stuff. And when I hear about the idea of flipping cars and breaking world records, jumping cars backwards and getting attacked by sharks and tigers, it just makes me feel so warm inside. It's like a highlight reel, like nobody's highlight reel, that can never be taken away. You know, it's the joys of what something like Fantasy Factory allowed me to achieve, not only from a business and media standpoint, but really from these bizarre highlights of doing all this fun, exciting stuff. I just knew at that point that I would never be diving, most likely ever again. I would never be around 50 sharks ever again. And it was just this moment of clarity that was just like, wow, whatever happens for the rest of your life, look at this. You just allowed an 8-foot shark to bite you and attack your arm, and it worked. You know what I mean? It's like, before I got in the water, it was like, this is so dumb. Like, why would I even want to do this? I'm gonna lose function over this arm for this television show. And at the time, you know, they were saying they didn't like any of the cuts and weren't gonna air it, right? And so it was even that much more stressful of like, I'm going down to get attacked by a shark. I think that moment of clarity just allowed me to soak in a moment that I didn't want to forget ever again. For 2 years, I would get up, and every day I would rate how motivated I was 0 to 10. And where it became so profoundly effective for me is what I realized is anytime I was under a 5, I would look at the world half empty, right? Mindsets, you pick apart every decision, you just hate you just literally, like, everything annoys you, regardless of what happens. And by just doing that exercise, it made me be able to identify the things that were sucking the energy out of me and driving me below, and I was able to slowly evolve those out of my life to where eventually I just don't ever wake up under a 5. I just don't. I believe progression is the key to happiness, right? It's that expansion of the universe and ultimate evolution, and when you equate it to skateboarding, you learn to ollie, you learn to kickflip, you learn to grind, you learn to kickflip to grind, right? Like, you learn to kickflip the backside Smith, you learn to kickflip the backside Smith, the kickflip out, right? Like, it's these levels, and you can only evolve and progress and become elite if you understand and learn the foundational steps along the way to put all of what you could consider experience together to do something really incredible. And I think a lot of people don't understand when it comes to entrepreneurialism, there's sort of these key elements that you have to understand from a foundational perspective in order to find success, which is ultimately creating a brand, understanding how to operationalize it, and understanding the financial implications of how you do both those things.
It's scary, right? Because it's a great unknown, right? And I just don't, for whatever it's worth, driving a car 52 miles an hour backwards and jumping 90 feet is just scary. Time stands still because you're just like, all right, I have to do it. You have no choice but to go into kill mode.
So many different times in the world of entrepreneurialism, especially this day and age, it's idea driven, right? As opposed to the battles won or lost and how it's operationalized, and then ultimately the unit economics behind the idea, right? I think that's one of the biggest things that's overlooked in the space, especially this day and age of so many people having an idea that they think can be a successful business and wrapping some sort of service or need or disruption around that idea without clearly understanding how to evolve that into an operationalized business that makes money. It's a huge gap, you know. There are so many different things in life that suck the soul right out of you, and you have to learn to basically build a life with very few of those, and so few even when you get hit by one every now and then that it just simply doesn't stay, because there's so few things taking energy but giving you energy, because at the end it's energy, and for so many people it's different. I'm not even gonna say it, I'm just gonna to prove it, you know, and that was, you know, truly all the fire that I needed to, like, you know, get kick-started on you need to take control of what your opportunity is and make sure that you focus on skateboarding, as it will allow you to maximize all of your other ambitions long-term, you know. I think I stopped and self-evaluated 4 years ago, right? Where I just evaluated everything, right? Like what worked, what didn't, and then what do you have left to learn?
What is your belief about belief? Is it important? Is it a starting point?
It is the only thing that matters. It is literally the only thing that matters. Because your experience, how you build something, what you learn, whatever it is, anything that you achieve, it is literally only based off of how much you believe it's going to happen. Goals and all this stuff, all it is breaking it down into micro actions for you to understand it and believe it, right? And I think, you know, there's two levels of it, right? It's why I love, from a business side, having tactical revenue models that show you step by step, we can grow this many units by this many months and this many doors over this much time. That's unbelievable to execute. That's why goal setting in a specific way means so much, right? But at a 30,000 foot level, you know, from a mentality standpoint, that unwavering self-belief is what I look for in people I partner with, because that's allows you to micro-fail and take big losses and take them as lessons and just move and chase down and constantly be doing micro-pivoting to achieve your bigger vision or your big goal, right? Because at the end of the day, it's only people that lose belief that quit. And belief gives you so much energy. And again, why when you begin to tie all these things together, especially from goals and planning aspect, it's easy to weather storms when you understand, okay, I've got to move around to get to the next pillar of this goal, rather than thinking like, none of this is gonna work type of mentality. You just want good people. I live without failure, you know what I mean? Like, I live without regret, without pain, without any of the stuff like behind of all the stuff that I went through. It bleeds away so easily for me, you know? So I don't do it purposefully, and, you know, certain things may trigger more painful stuff as they're fresher, but eventually I don't remember any of it. But it also forces me now to stuff that I really want to retain, and especially turn to habit, which I think is probably the most difficult transition of experience, of how do you take something good or bad that you've experienced and then apply the lesson from it, and now in a consistent way. I think, again, for that aspect, you have to like recognize it, identify it, and then begin to use it with intent, you know what I mean, in order to have it sink in. Super driven people tend to believe they can be great, they would be great at everything if they just spent the time learning it or knowing it. It's the depth of clarity is the greatest form of peace and happiness, because you begin to now optimize your clear goal. As you begin to optimize it, it becomes so much more believable. I've always been driven, right? And I think at that particular time, I just wasn't getting enough out of being a pro skateboarder. You have to seek it. You have to seek like life mastery. Your first thing is like, what does your entire life look like, right? It's very difficult, and I think younger people struggle with trying to like look at forever and trying to design a life, and then now evaluating every single opportunity based off of how it fits into that core master plan. And what's allowed me to do is basically systematize it in a way that I could now look deeper into a brand and how to simply put the pieces together to put a soul into that brand. I had to learn the depth of operationalizing a business because I didn't live on the operational side, and I don't like it, right? I just don't like it. It just opened up this insane level of deep clarity, because then you start thinking about time and energy, and okay, how do you systematize your life to stay balanced and what I like to call just living in the energy. Like, if you're not someone that's trying to evolve and grow and have sort of that idea of wanting to progress and become a better version of yourself and beginning to like self-analyze in a positive way, relentlessly consistent, right? It is like, this is who you are and how you are. Consistency is the only pathway to greatness, and ultimately it's the only pathway to trust. Excited about, but it's only fun if it goes like this, right? It's like the business that you stumble out the gate and then you're in no man's land, and then it's like, when do we let go of it? Like, even the emotional side, I had to learn to, if my passion is creating successful, sustainable businesses, you also have to detach yourself from being emotionally invested to everything that you do. Still felt generally at that age lost, right? And that led to a lot of partying, which then led to like just eating terribly and just being genuinely lazy. Your fire comes from the desire that you have to realize the passion. You're more compelled to execute it. You're not proving someone wrong or looking for some sort of material aspect of it. It's really more who you are as an individual. Right, and I think it's the self-awareness idea of like, you know what you're really great at, and you have the ability to find people like you and identifying to fill the gaps that you don't. I would hope that when it's all said and done, and one day I put all this thought into a system, that it would ultimately help create a pathway for people to learn to master themselves and build a life system that leads them to predictable happiness. You know, I think at the end of the day, creating some sort of program or outlet to be able to achieve that would be what I would like to do long term, you know.
Well, this guy had the highest score in qualification, 45.3. 19-year-old Shaun White from Carlsbad, California, the only guy in this competition wearing a bandana.
You know, it's strange. I've always just kind of like had my eyes open to what was around me, you know, and things would just like come in and out of my life, and it was up to me to really dig deeper on those if it felt right, or just kind of, you know, pass and move on to the next thing. You just do what's hard until it's not hard anymore. Even when it came to snowboarding, there were certain things that were very difficult to get past, and I just remember doing it until it became easy. You know, it's like if you broke your hand and you weren't used to riding with that hand, and then you're forced to, you know, ride or to use chopsticks or to do something. Once you do it enough, it becomes, you know, a casual thing to do.
Snowboarder Shaun White, no longer king of the sport he made famous.
Things would just like come in and out of my life, and it was up to me to really dig deeper on those if it felt right, or just kind of, you know, pass and move on to the next thing.
Well, this guy, Shaun White, has been on the radar screen, everyone's radar screen, since he was 14 years of age. He's not only a snowboarding star, he's also a skateboarding star.
A perfect 100, the first time ever. Make his own fate. The judges give Shaun White that 93.
There it is, a 98. This distances himself from the field.
I wanted to do things, and that's where snowboarding came along, and it gave me that outlet. And you know, it was fun and it was cool in the beginning, and then my parents were like, oh, maybe he's pretty good at it. People around the mountain are telling them I was pretty good, and so they put me into a competition, and it was a race, and I won. You know, I was pretty fast, and so
this is like at 7.
Yeah,
right?
like 6, 7, and I'd skied at 4, if you call it skiing. I basically, like, I wasn't allowed poles because I would hit people. I was like really into the Ninja Turtles, and I was just like, I had moves, I thought I had moves, and so yeah, I ended up not allowed poles, and then I would just like go into the trees and they'd lose me, and they'd be all worried about where I was and what would happen, and so they're like, oh, we'll put him on a snowboard. He'll be falling, we'll keep track of him, it'll be great. And so obviously I figured it out pretty quickly. And then they put me in a competition at the local resort up at Snow Summit, and you know, I won, and that gave me this like, wow, I could win something, and then it gave me the, you know, the passion to work hard at something, to keep winning. You know, once you get that taste of victory, and you're like, wow, well maybe, I want to keep going on this path. I think that was where it stemmed from. And then the other huge component, which I'm sure if you read any other sports book or anything, it was I have an older brother, 7 years older than me. So a lot bigger, a lot stronger, a lot smarter, you know, and he was always beating me at everything I did. Everything. Monopoly, chess, like anything, the video games, snowboarding, like everything. He was just always winning, and I just couldn't beat him. And, you know, I just kept at it, and I finally, like, you know, crossed that barrier where I was actually learning the tricks he was learning at the time. But he's 7 years older, so, you know, in my age division, it was just, you know, no contest. And so that's what kind of stemmed that whole me turning pro at 13, because I was already ready for, you know, the next level. I was 15 years old, and I flew to Japan to do this big competition called the Toyota Big Air. And I remember getting there, I'm pretty sure the way it worked out is like the specific invited riders got a little bit of money to show up, and then obviously there's great prize money, and you had maybe 3 or 4 days of practice. And I was 15, so my mom's there, and I was paying out of my own travel to like get the flights, to get the food, to get the hotel, and all these things. I remember sitting there, and it's the game day, you know, we're supposed to hit the jump, and everyone's complaining, which is like music to my ears because I'm having the best day ever. And you know, yeah, the guys had gone out. We're in Japan. There's a lot of fun things to do. And I was like in my room with my mom, like doing my algebra or whatever. And I'm like, all right, well, yo, you guys go have fun. I'm gonna, you know, do my schoolwork. And so, anyways, long story short, they all got together and were like, we're gonna split the prize money for the competition. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, like doing the quick math, I'm like, this doesn't even cover the flights out once you split it up among all the riders and whatnot. And I said no. I was 15, I was like, no, I want to compete. And they just sat there and hazed me. And there was like this board of like all the riders' faces for who was at the competition. And they took turns like drawing dollar signs on my eyes and doing whatnot. And I just remember being like, I'm not gonna succumb to the like, pure pressure of this. Like I came here to compete, I'm feeling great, and I stuck to my, you know, gut feeling there, and I won. I won $50,000 in a car. But yeah, it was a time where I just kind of like stuck to it, and that was a big win for me, and that was kind of the first realization that I didn't have to follow the pack. I didn't have to do what everyone else said because it's what they want or what they should do or what you're supposed to do. I just kind of felt like, you know what, this is a point where I should make a stand. I should really be me and own it, and I did, and I won. It was pretty wild. So, and I just stuck to it. And I remember just putting my headphones on and doing anything to distract myself because nothing's gonna slow down the clock on when we need to do the competition. But it was definitely like a defining moment for me to stand up for myself and what I wanted to accomplish.
What's the nature of competition for you? Like, what does competition mean?
It's a multiple of things. I mean, it's a chance to, I guess, go out and show, you know, the hard work that's been put in, and to kind of display it for everyone. Your chance to show off in a way, and in another way, it's a chance to access some deep part of yourself that is gonna do something you never thought you could do or would want to do, you know. And I have trouble now that I'm gotten a little bit older. I've just turned 30, and you know, unfortunately, you think more. I feel like, you know, I'm like, it's pretty icy today. It's a little windy. I feel like tomorrow, and now I got the weather report. I'm like, it's gonna be better tomorrow. We should definitely come back tomorrow, you know, and like procrastinating, but like, you know, it's your chance to do something great, and I strive for those moments, and I wish I could recreate them in the normal life setting, because it changes from I want to do this new trick to I have to do this new trick, and it's the best because it takes that seed of doubt out of your mind. It's gonna happen, so what are you gonna do to best prepare yourself? And that's kind of that motivation of like getting to the contest and throwing the big tricks and seeing your competition and that motivation. And I've always loved that. I was at the X Games, and I did, in my run, I broke an old record, and I went 24 feet out of the 22-foot half pipe. So I was up there, and it was funny because I wasn't going that big all day, but it was the contest time, and I was jacked up, and I dropped in and I hit that marker, and I recently broke that record at the US Open of snowboarding in Vail last season. I went 26 feet. It just kind of comes out of you, and you do better. So that's what competition is for me, for sure. Visualize, definitely. That's kind of the thing for me. It's always been like, well, what's it gonna look like, and what's it gonna feel like, and what am I gonna be wearing, and every little detail. And visualize yourself winning, you know, like, what are you gonna do after? You know, you just project it, and it happens. And I've always kind of like set goals for myself. That's a huge one. Set the goal of like, what do you really want to do? Like, what is it in the end? For me, I would always set up like a fun goal and then like a serious goal. So one year, one of the goals was like, how many cars can I win? Because like the snowboard contest would give out cars if you won the series. So, you know, obviously, like, yeah, winning the series is amazing, you know, that's a feat of its own, but I broke it down to like, I just got to win the cars. It made it into this stupid sort of game where it dumbed it down slightly, you know.
Does that help alleviate the pressure?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, obviously you have serious goals of like, I want to win the Olympics, and then I want to see how many cars I can win, you know, and it made it this fun thing of like, you know, taking a little bit of the edge off, because it's such a daunting task when you look at it from like, wow, I'm gonna try to win the Olympics. Like it's such a big thing, and then you really kind of break it down into these smaller things. It's more edible that way. And I don't know if I knew what I was doing. I mean, now that I'm a bit older, I kind of see the you know, I can break it down for what was happening, but it just felt like there was so much pressure. Man, like you gotta do this, you gotta do that, and it just felt like there was so much weight on it, and I would always kind of turn it to my favor. So any which way you spin it, I'm winning in a way. Like if you look at a competition like this last X Games I went to, like I didn't win, but I really feel like I won because I know exactly what I need to work on now. I know exactly what happened and I did wrong and I gotta go back, you know, and that's why it's still winning to me. Where if I did win, you know, I think about it like, wow, well, I'm exactly on the path I'm supposed to be going. The training and the ideas I've had before working, and this is where you go. So it's not like, you know, even those slight step backs are actually, you know, to leap forward in a way.
So when do you plan to be at the X Games? As soon as possible. I'm looking for this guy. This guy has world-class skater written all over him. Good luck, Sean.
Looking to better the situation, you know, and I've been to contests before where I really wanted to win and I put everything on the line for that event and I didn't win. And I went like, man, you put too much pressure on it. In business, you can fail here and there, and it's the same idea of like trying something over and over and just finally cracking the code on it. And then once you get that win, you get that experience and know that you can succeed, it's that like I said in competition, that seed of doubt goes away and you show up to win every time. That's the only option, you know, and once that's the only option, it's even more obtainable. If I asked you to do a feat and you actually accomplished it, you have that knowledge now going back to do it again. Well, oh, I've already, you know, jumped over this, or I've already done this thing in business and it's old news, and you go in with even more confidence than you had that it took to win the first time. So, you know, you have that in you, and projecting that positive thing always just leads to better outcomes either way, you know, and even with pressure as well, when people say like, how do you deal with the pressure? And I'm just so thankful for the pressure, you know, like they're like, everybody thinks you're gonna win the Olympics. And I go, well, if everybody thinks I'm gonna win, that's great. Like that's a lot of people believing in me, thinking that I can do it. Hey, maybe I just might be able to do it. You know, if you, instead of letting it weigh me down, like, oh my God, all these people are expecting this from me, and I'm expecting this from myself, and it's just too much, I can't handle, like, no, it's such it's a blessing. It's a great thing to have people counting on you and needing that, and it's all kind of leading up to that sort of like, you know, you can win, you felt it before, you know it's obtainable, everybody else believes in you. It's like your team rather than letting it weigh you down. So if you can kind of put that subtle spin on things and use it to your advantage, is always a better scenario, you know, and I've let the pressure get to me before, and it just, well, that didn't work. Like, you know, like I was terrified this to happen, and you know, and you learn from that and you go on. But yeah, there's always lessons to be learned. Even learning tricks, it's the basic thing. It's like a math problem. You're throwing solutions at it, and you finally, the numbers work and it clicks and it works out. You know, same with snowboarding and jumps and learning a new trick. You learn the very important lesson and simple lesson of what not to do. And you know, hey, I tried this. You know, you watch the video. Oh, I took off wrong. I'm going to try it again and again and again and again. And you get to a point where you get the confidence, you get the muscle memory, you get the ability to then do that trick. And now it's yours, and then you can do it at a competition when it really matters. The practice, like you said, you know, it's something you kind of get over time. This year, I've decided to do every single competition that I can enter, just because I know that getting to that pressure scenario when I was younger I didn't think as much. I would just throw my tricks and that was it. But nowadays I need that extra motivation, that coaxing into it. And to get rid of that seed of doubt, I show up at contests now. So it's kind of like knowing yourself as well, and knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, and kind of sticking to that. Like, what are you really good at and what are you not? And being real and honest with yourself about it. There's a difference between like working hard at something that you're not good at and forcing it. And that's kind of the inner question you have to ask. But I've always found that to be kind of a truth for me. How do I stay motivated? You know, man, it's a mixture of things. It's like, you know, there's always new goals, there's always new things to do. Obviously, you know, when it comes to snowboarding, going to an Olympics and not doing well, obviously at Sochi, not getting the gold and all that, like, man, extremely motivating, extremely eye-opening. I'd never gone to an Olympics and not won. It was the first time for me. I was like, wow, how do I feel about this? Well, what happens after? And it was amazing for me to realize that people were still like, oh, you're the champ, you're the guy, you know, and I don't know, for some reason, I just like, in my mind, I just assumed that if you don't win, they immediately strip all the other medals and you're just some guy, or like the superpowers are gone, and you're just like, I just remember feeling like this overwhelming, like, wow, I'm still alive, I'm still here. Like the worst thing I could have imagined happened and I was still here. I was still considered, you know, the great in the sport. And it did a lot for me personally. I was like, wow, I can actually, like, I can lose. And I hadn't lost. I mean, this like reign of like me winning, it's been a long, long thing. And obviously that was just like one night, one contest, but the world was watching, so it was pretty rough to lose. But you realize that, yeah, it's just that one moment and you gotta get back up, and that's the true spirit of the sport, is to come back. You know, it's like the thrill of the fight to get there, and you become, you know, part of the US team, the Olympics and all that. It's such an amazing and memorable thing, and then to actually go and compete. But the bounce back from that was amazing. And I remember sitting there thinking, instead of like curling up and like, all right, maybe I should, you know, yeah, they're saying I'm getting older, maybe I should quit, or maybe you know, and I didn't want to quit. I was just like put in my head so many times by the media that I was like, you start hearing it so much, you kind of believe it. And I remember sitting there thinking, wow, like, well, I don't feel that way, and I'm not done, and I don't want to be done. And obviously there's other things in my life that were capturing my attention at that time, but I don't know, the thrill was still there, and I had newfound motivation from not winning. And I remember thinking, I'm gonna do more than I've ever done after an Olympics this time around. Because normally what happens is you get this kind of flood of like, hey, you know, this company wants to endorse you, you're the Olympic gold medalist and blah, blah, blah. And you totally deserve to do that. You won, and it's kind of like the quick money that comes your way, and before the world turns around, it's off to the next thing. And I wasn't getting those floods of offers. I was getting offers still, but it wasn't like the quick, you know, gold rush sort of scenario. And I was like, well, what do I want to do? What do I truly want to do? And since that Olympics, I mean, in business, man, I no longer ride for a mountain. I'm a part owner in a mountain resort, Big Bear Snow Summit and Mammoth Mountain. And yeah, I still compete, but I now own my own competition series, music festival series. I've changed my boys' clothing line to a men's clothing line because it fits my, you know, vibe of who I am today, not who I was before. And I always felt like snowboarding's been a part of my, it's not me, it's not my life. Like it's what I do for fun, and it's what I do competitively, but it's not who I am.
Pretty much gotta have fun, really like skating, do it for you and only you, not just cause it's like, oh, I gotta win this competition, I gotta do this, gotta do this. Just have fun with it and just practice a lot, you know. Try your hardest. It'll come.
Looks like Shaun White has been on the radar screen, everyone's radar screen, since he was 14 years of age. He's not only a snowboarding star, he's also a skateboarding star.
Impact. You know, like I touched on in the beginning, is that like, yeah, snowboarding is a part of my life. It's definitely not my life and all that I am. And so I feel like my thing that I would leave is that I hope to be looked at as someone that really didn't you know, see the boundaries of what you should and shouldn't do, that I just kind of, you know, I did the road less traveled. You know, I did the things that people said couldn't be done. It's kind of the goal for me.
It's a pretty damn good thing to leave behind.
So that's it.
I have this tattoo on my wrist where actually the first time I tried to commit suicide, I tried to cut my wrist that says believe, because my mother's always talked about either if you don't believe in yourself, then who's going to believe in you? It forced me to work harder. It forced me to put my head down. Now there's some disadvantages to that too. You can get lost in the work process and not be present to some of the things that are happening in your life. But I think that mentality and being around people that inspired me, not by their words, but more so by their actions. I hear a lot of people talk every single day. And I was one of these guys, Tom, when I was playing things the right way. But I think for everybody, you get into this preachy thing about, look at me, and look about what I do. And I started not to listen to what people said, but started to watch how people acted and how they interacted with other people. And that helped me set the bar for where I wanted to be. Anymore. I think I always want to get better. I think I'm a little bit relentless in that capacity. And I found relevance in the process of it's not always going to be easy. There are going to be challenges. There's still going to be curveballs thrown at me. But I can't become introverted. I have to continue to get outside myself, because when you're uncomfortable, that's the only way you're going to grow. For 10 plus years after my accident, I held a lot of animosity because I see guys that I was better than, that I thought I was better than. I thought I was better than everybody. I mean, that's what, you have to be crazy to be great at something, right? And seeing these guys that were signing this $135, $150 million contract, and that used to sit in me, so I was so angry about it. The guy doesn't. You know, why the hell me? Like, what did I do to deserve this pain for the rest of my life? But you never get better if you're not willing to put in the time. And basketball is very similar to the game of life. There's gonna be ups and downs. Sometimes you may turn the ball over 7 times in a row. But if you put in the work and you constantly put in the work, you can't allow that one mistake to go into the next play. If you allow 7 turnovers to go into my next possession with the basketball, or that next possession in life, if you allow that divorce, or if you allow that passing away of somebody, or that loss of a career to go into the next 8 plays, you'll have another 8 turnovers. You have to be willing to say, that was back there, that happened, but it doesn't mean it needs to happen now. But I remember we were playing against the Lakers, Tom, and we were out here in LA, and you know, look, I always try to outwork people, right? That's just how I made my mark. So the game was at 7. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna come to the Staples Center, because we're playing, this is when the Lakers had Kobe and Shaq, okay? This is like the championship Lakers. I was like, you know, I'm gonna get there at 3 o'clock, and I wanna make sure I make 400 made shots before I go back into the room, and then I sit in the sauna and I get ready for the game. So, you know, get in the car, get to the gym, get there, and as I'm walking onto the court, who do I see? I see Kobe Bryant, already working out. So I put my sneakers on, and so once I set my foot across that line, I started working out. And so I worked out for a good hour and a half. And when I came off, after I was done, I sat down, and of course I still heard the ball bounce. He was working out, like, it looks like he was in a dead sweat when I got here. And he's still going. And it's not like his moves are nonchalant or lazy. He's doing like game moves. Get in the sauna, get ready for the game. That game, he drops 40 on us, okay? And after the game is over, I'm like, I have to ask this guy. Like, I have to understand, like, why he works like that. So after the game is over, I'm like, hey, Kobe, like, why were you in the gym for so long? He's like, because I saw you come in. doesn't matter how hard you work, that I'm willing to work harder than you. And it was the first time I started to see this level of competitiveness where I said, I need to start doing more. It's amazing how many people you talk to don't actually think for a second about trying to become better. You're so busy in the minutia and the clutter that you're running through your life with your head down. And it was the first time I had to sit and evaluate. And that process within itself is rewarding, peaceful to my soul and my spirit, but still drives me because I still know I have such a long way to go, and I have to continue the process. It never stops. And just let people know that this, if you're lucky, if we're lucky, you're always going to be a work in progress. And you have to want to work. And she said, you know what, if you were to allocate a percentage of the energy that you put into your career, into yourself, and learning more about yourself, and learning more about yourself in relationships, you'll be successful. And it was the first time I had to sit back and say, wow, that's really powerful. Because I think a lot of people, when you have to start addressing other things, you get mentally tired. When there's an unknown, something that you haven't felt like you mastered, I'm unsure about it, when it gets frustrating, like, you know, who are you going to be? Are you gonna be that person that wallows in their self-pity? Or are you gonna be that person that says, you know what, okay, I did this wrong, I did that wrong, but how can I be better? And I think that's what I talk about, that relentless mentality to want to be better at just life in general. This muscle here, since I lost my nerve, it's gone away. And I have drop foot. So my game had to change. And very much like life, you're used to doing one thing at 21 is different than when you're 35 years old, right? And I had to be open enough and vulnerable enough to accept the fact that my game had to be different in order for me to be effective. But like I said earlier, it's so hard when my brain sees things and my body before, I guess this is a gift of being an athlete to that caliber. Right, I see it gone, right? If I bring the ball down the court and there's a screen coming, you know, to your right, and you glance over, if I see your eye glance within that split second, I'm gone, because I see you take your eye off of me. So now all of a sudden my game's changed at 21 years old. Now all of a sudden that first step is like, it's molasses, it's non-existent, right? So now, am I willing to say, I'm not that fast anymore? I have to work you into the screen. I have to take my time. I have to actually come off shoulder to shoulder. I have to use my body more to create separation. Hey, my jump shot wasn't the best. I have to be a better shooter because I don't have that explosion anymore. And a lot of people say, hey, that seems pretty easy, but to mentally accept that I'm a different person now, and to help other people see I'm a different person was challenging. And the major part that was the most difficult was seeing myself. So as an athlete, I was used to people looking at me in a state of awe, right? And it was something you thrive for, you work your entire life for. So when the kid or when somebody would come up to me, they're like, oh my God, Tom, like, your show is amazing, right? And you're used to that affirmation of what you do. You're like, all right, it's worth me putting the time. Whereas that look for me changed, and that look really made me depressed too, because it was a look from, oh my God, you're amazing, to a look of, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Right.
Or what happened? Or you used to be that guy before you messed up. And people don't say things maliciously. They say things more so because it's awkward and they want to start a conversation. And those things would drive me insane. And Tim forced me to talk to him about those things. It was the first time I started having conversations. I'm talking like on the court. I'll be on the court doing a drill, and he's like, you have drop foot. And all of a sudden I would attack the drill a little bit more. And next drill, he'd be like, it used to be that guy, you were good. And I would, let's get up more shots. So he started to find ways to motivate me and started to take the anger out of the equation for me too. And that was a hell of a first step in the process of me rebuilding who I was as a person. for 2 or 3 years, I thought I was living a fucked up dream. And I kept waiting to wake up. I kept waiting to wake up. Tim was the first person that forced me to talk, just to talk. And it's amazing when you just open your mouth and you start saying how you really feel about stuff. I mean, think about how many people really say how they feel.
Virtually nobody.
Exactly. I associated bigger with monetary value. So for me, it was like, hey, I could have made $250 million in my NBA career. How do I achieve that?
Right.
Like that's the goal. That's what bigger means. And bigger has changed for me to now meaning impact, right? So yes, I do want to have my own media network one day. I do want to help other people film content. I love content, but I rather it be. I don't worry about the money now. The money's going to take care of itself. If I impact people, the rest will happen. Mentally.
Right.
Like that's a story. Like that's a story that should be cherished for younger kids out there, for older people out there. It doesn't matter. You don't have to come back and do what you did before and do it exponentially better. You have to come back better as a person and really value that process. Like that's a comeback. Like that should be an American story. You approach things with a completely different mentality than a person who feels like they're going to be a victim. You start becoming the hunter again. And the more you can stay with that hunter mentality, it will pay dividends down the line. There was a guy who lived outside my apartment, and I have a place in Tribeca. I've worked really hard for it, and it would shatter my soul every morning when I would get up in my apartment and I have these big windows and I look out and I see this guy who's homeless, right? And I was sitting there one day and I saw so many people just going by him, just on their phone, not paying attention to him. Not that he was looking for attention at all. And I got out of my apartment, I went down and I started talking to him, and you start finding out this guy and his story and where he's from, and the fact that he lost his daughter in a really bad accident. He used to work on Wall Street and his wife divorced him, and he can't pick up the pieces. But he said something that was so powerful to me. Because in a moment when he was talking about all his frustrations, he said, you know what though? I am where I am, and only I can change it. You know, as much as we're talking, you are the only person that can change it. At the end of the day, people can want to help you as much as they want to help you. And I don't think complaining is the answer either. You have to want to take yourself to a different place. And if you don't have that, then you're going to stay stuck. And a lot of people choose to stay stuck. And we see it every single day. And people say, I can't believe you got yourself out. I'm still getting myself out of it. And it's never going to stop. And that's a good thing, because it could have stopped on June 19th. And if it had stopped on June 19th, 2003, how sad would that have been that I wouldn't even have been able to spend time reflecting on the shit that I was doing. I hope that I can help other people get out of their own way. You have to drive your own car, and if you don't drive it, someone else is going to drive it for you. And that other person is driving it may not be a person, it may be a darkness, that entity that we talked about, that is easy to get lost and consumed in. I'm still clawing. I don't think you ever claw your way out. I do this when I do talks, and it's amazing to see how squirmish and uncomfortable people get. You hear that? That's the only person you're dealing with is you when you're quiet. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to look inside yourself or to spend time with yourself. And whenever I do a talk or when I talk to people who I think are going through a lot of pain, I first tell them, okay, I understand what you're going through, but you just need to stop for 1 second. Because what we have a tendency to do is we over-inundate ourselves with other things that really don't matter to keep ourselves busy, to keep not thinking about the things that do matter. So once you're finally able to stop yourself and you're present with yourself, you have to go back and you have to address it. I'm not saying that you're gonna find a conclusion right then and there, but you have to recognize that whatever happened did happen. And I try to push people to find silver linings. I think there's truly a silver lining in everything. And once again, it's what you choose to focus your energy on. If you choose to focus your energy on all the things that God took away from you, or whatever entity that is that you believe in took away from you, then you will be consumed with that energy. If you try to force yourself to be consumed with the silver lining, even if you revert back, you have to remind yourself of the silver lining because it gives you a target goal. Like, you know, it's mental targeting. Are you able to focus on something that allows you to get out of your own way? If you don't have a goal to help you get out of your own way, you will be stuck. So what is that? Is that your wife? Is that your parents? Whatever you need to use to be better for, you have to do that. And you have to find that it's only going to come from listening to yourself and spending time with yourself.